Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has called for an investigation into the transnational criminal organization seeking to steal the country's international gold reserves. Presidential candidates have wound up their campaigns in the Dominican Republic ahead of Sunday's general election. Palestinian organizations Hamas and Fatah have announced a coalition to oppose and resist Israel's illegal plans to annex parts of the West Bank. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. And we begin in Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro welcomed the agreement reached between his government and the European Union to strengthen mechanisms for bilateral dialogue.
And to proceed to a new stage of dialogue between Josep Borrell and Jorge Arreaza. And that is what has been done. I think it is the best, the most intelligent, the appropriate thing to do, and also what corresponds to what we are looking for, that the world hears the truth of Venezuela, that the European Union enters into another understanding, that there be a profound historic rectification of the role that the European Union has played in its relationship with Venezuela. That's why I salute you. The joint communique signed by Mr. Josep Borrell and Mr. Jorge Arreaza on behalf of the High Representative of the European Union and the Foreign Minister of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. And I ask for the full support of Venezuelan public opinion for this necessary diplomatic agreement, and the applause for our people for these steps of peaceful diplomacy.
And during an interview with Telesur, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza stressed that the Venezuelan government has agreed with the European Union to strengthen mechanisms for bilateral dialogue in order to avoid an impasse in diplomatic relations.
The Bolivarian Revolution principles were maintained. There is a commitment to upgrade talks at the highest level between the European Union Permanent Representative and myself, in order to maintain talks in real time so misinformation does not occur, as well as to make the vision of the Venezuelan government clear. In this way, we can correct any kind of differences or disputes regarding bilateral relations and reinforce the cooperation between Venezuela and the European Union, which is strategic cooperation.
And this Thursday, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez announced the existence of a transnational criminal organization headed by opposition lawmaker Juan Guaidó that seeks to steal Venezuela's gold reserves.
The President of the Republic has specifically requested that we keep our population informed about the aggressions of the extremistic group of Venezuelan politicians who have established themselves as a transnational criminal organizations in order to take control of the assets of the Venezuelan people. Today, as is known, an English judge adopted an extravagant decision on the recognition of the absurd deputy Juan Guaidó as the supposed head of state in Venezuela.
And the Venezuelan Vice President announced that President Nicolas Maduro has requested an investigation into the transnational criminal organization seeking to steal the country's international gold reserves.
Today, President Nicolas Maduro, in his capacity as head of state, in his capacity as head of government, has asked, he requested that the judicial institutions in Venezuela immediately open an investigation to determine the criminal responsibility of those who are part of this blatant theft, this piracy of Venezuelan gold. To protect all our people, an immediate investigation should be opened, in addition to the international actions that the Attorney General of the Republic is already preparing to enact in the face of this situation. This gold belongs to Venezuelans, not to this band of thieves that intends to pay the United Kingdom for political favors with the territory of Venezuela and with the resources and with our gold.
And the Venezuelan Vice President also offered an update on COVID-19 figures this Thursday. Delcy Rodriguez reported 157 locally transmitted COVID-19 cases and 3 deaths in the last 24 hours. The Vice President also reported 54 imported cases, of which 35 came from Colombia, 7 from Brazil, 2 from Peru, 1 from Ecuador, and 9 cases were people who had contact with others who had returned from abroad. The Venezuelan official also noted that there is no more effective preventive measure than social distancing. Venezuela's COVID-19 figures now stand at more than 6,000 positive cases and 54 fatalities. Peru surpassed 10,000 COVID-19 deaths this Thursday, a day after the government began easing a nationwide lockdown in a bid to revive the economy. The number of deaths rose by 185 in the last 24 hours, while the number of people infected has surpassed 292,000, according to recent data from the Health Ministry. Peru is Latin America's second hardest hit country after Brazil. Among the fatalities are 71 health workers and 153 police officers. With the beginning of the dry season in Brazil, environmental experts and Brazilian forest authorities have warned that the Amazon rainforest is once again threatened by wildfires. The number of wildfires in the Brazilian Amazon increased by 19.5% in June in comparison to last year. According to data published by government agencies, more than 2,000 fires occurred, representing the worst figure for that month in 13 years. These figures and the excessive practice of deforestation are providing a worse scenario than that of 2019, when millions of hectares of tropical rainforest and animal and plant species were wiped out by the fires. Uruguay has assumed the rotating presidency of the Southern Common Market, Mercosur. During a virtual summit of the bloc made up of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay and Uruguay this Thursday, Paraguayan President Mario Abdo Benitez transferred the responsibility to Uruguayan President Luis Lacalle. Since Monday, meetings coordinated by the Paraguayan Foreign Ministry have dealt with the economic and social impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in the region, where the disease has spread widely. At the two following sessions, the Ministers of Economy and Presidents of central banks met, and a preparatory meeting of the Common Market Group was held with the presence of the Associated States. Circuses in Bolivia have seen empty tents for the past months as the lockdown forced shows to close to reduce the spread of the novel coronavirus. When the government announced in March that shows were banned, the jumbo circus crew had just finished setting up its tent in a suburb of El Alto city.
We never thought we'd depend on this. For example, wedding and making money by wedding. I've always wanted to work as a clown, to do artistry, to do many things that I have always wanted to do in the circus. But we have to look for other methods and ways to make money, to generate money. There is no option because we need to eat and earn our daily living.
This Thursday, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel recalled the legacy of the Nobel laureate in literature, Ernest Hemingway, one of the leading novelists of the 20th century, who took his own life on July 2, 1961. Hemingway is considered among the most outstanding novelists of his time and represents a symbol of the relations between the peoples of the United States and Cuba, where he worked and lived for 20 years. Hemingway's career included his excellent exercise of journalism as a reporter and war correspondent, which served him later to create bestsellers such as A Farewell to Arms and For Whom the Bell Tolls, set during the Spanish Civil War. He wrote 7 novels, 6 short story compilations and 2 essays, while 3 further novels, 4 storybooks and 3 essays were published posthumously. And we're taking a very short break now, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. A large presence of national observers will characterize the general elections to be held on Sunday in the Dominican Republic. Local electoral observation will mainly be the responsibility of political parties, which will have more than 500,000 representatives in charge of monitoring all phases of the process in the 16,000 polling stations across the country. The observers from political organizations will be joined by 2,500 observers from the Participación Ciudadana civil society organization. Regarding international observation of the election, the Organization of American States will send a delegation of 80 people, while the Inter-American Union of Electoral Organizations will send 6, and a diplomatic corps accredited to the Dominican Republic will be represented by 20 diplomats. And Dominican health authorities reported another 810 COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours and 11 deaths. Minister of Public Health Rafael Sanchez called for extreme measures given the rise in cases that has been seen lately following the economic reopening of the country and the lifting of the curfew, and especially now that airports and tourism facilities were reopened. And we continue in the Caribbean, where this Thursday, CARICOM announced over 2,600 patients have recovered from COVID-19 in its member states. In the past week, Caribbean community nations have increased their recovery figures by more than 1,000, and Barbados has joined the group of countries with no current active COVID-19 cases. Despite the total of over 8,300 confirmed infections among CARICOM member states, there's been an effective response to the pandemic. Haiti now has the highest number of active cases at over 4,900. To advance in the fight against the pandemic, CARICOM member states thank the African Union for giving them access to the African Medical Supplies Platform, which facilitates the purchase of certified medical equipment such as diagnostic kits, personal protective equipment and clinical management devices with increased cost effectiveness and transparency. St. Lucia has launched the I Am CARICOM Communications campaign, an initiative aimed at increasing visibility and understanding of CARICOM among citizens of the community. The initiative was launched by the Regional Integration Unit in the Office of the St. Lucian Prime Minister in collaboration with the Caribbean Community Secretariat. It seeks to engage and assist citizens of the community to take ownership and participate fully in the regional integration development agenda through CARICOM institutions, its governance structure, policies and plans. Moscow on Thursday denied allegations that Russia had sold arms to the Taliban and instead accused the United States of supplying ISIS fighters with helicopters.
It is well known that Russia has always supplied with arms only the legitimate government of Afghanistan. If American colleagues intend to have a conversation in this context, it is appropriate to mention that information that has been circulated actively in Afghanistan about U.S. Special Services supplying ISIS, Islamic State group, fighters with helicopters. We were talking a lot about these helicopters without identification at the briefings a year and a half ago.
Russian President Vladimir Putin thanked the Russian people for their support for the constitutional amendments this Thursday.
The results of the nationwide vote show that a vast majority of Russian citizens believe that we can work better, that broad government, from local authorities to the president, have to do everything to meet people's high expectations. I would like to address Russian citizens again to express my sincere words of gratitude. I also understand our citizens who voted against constitutional amendments. It's true that we will still have lots of unsolved issues. People often encounter injustice, obduracy and indifference. Many are still living in difficult and harsh conditions, while the government believes that we are doing our
Japanese health authorities recorded a record number of new COVID-19 cases in Tokyo on Thursday. Meanwhile, Tokyo's governor, Yuriko Koike, called on citizens to refrain from going out to popular nightlife areas and to avoid crowded districts.
Today's number of positive COVID-19 cases is 107 people. Under the state of emergency on May 2nd, there were 154 people, but it exceeded 100 people to the first time in 2 months. Regarding the breakdown, young people in their 20s and 30s are increasing as well as today. Based on analysis of experts, we are at a stage that we should be aware that we should be cautious about the spread of infection to the citizens of Tokyo and businesses. I hope you will share the common awareness. During the time of business closure, request and state of emergency, I think everyone had to be patient. I think returning to that situation is not desirable to anyone. If that's the case, I would like to ask for everyone's cooperation.
We have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Palestinian organisations Hamas and Fatah have announced a coalition to oppose and resist Israel's illegal plans to annex parts of the West Bank and to ensure national unity in the struggle.
If we are in the corner, we will not raise white flag. We will not surrender. We will not give up. All the options are open if we reach the situation that the Israelis start the annexation and slamming the door for the two-state solution.
We declare in this conference the position of the political leadership of the Fatah and Hamas movement and the other factions, and we ask everyone to engage in joint action to confront the annexation plan. We must defend our people against settler attacks on our villages. We must defend our people against the aggression of the occupation. Therefore, we will use all kinds of struggle and resistance against the annexation project.
Diplomatic tensions continue to escalate between Turkey and France as Turkey's foreign minister demanded an apology from the French government on Thursday over a naval incident that occurred in the Mediterranean Sea in June.
France has not told the truth here to the EU or the NATO. To claim that our vessels locked onto French vessels are not true. We have proven this with reports and documents and gave them to NATO. NATO saw the truth. Instead of engaging in anti-Turkish activities and such leanings, France needs to make a sincere confession. Our expectation from France at the moment is for it to apologize in a clear fashion, without ifs or buts, for not providing the correct information.
Indian health authorities carried out COVID-19 tests in the city of Mumbai on Thursday as infections continue to rise across the country. The total number of confirmed cases has now surpassed 620,000, of which almost 22,000 cases were recorded in the last 24 hours. Meanwhile, Indian health authorities have stressed that over 200,000 COVID-19 tests are being conducted per day. The death toll stands at more than 18,000, while almost 380,000 patients have recovered from the virus. Demonstrators took to the streets in Mali's capital Bamako this Thursday to demand the release of abducted opposition leader Soumaïla Cissé, missing for 100 days. Cissé was abducted on March 25th following an electoral campaign activity in the Timbuktu region. The leader of the Union for the Republic and Democracy Party had called for the resignation of Malian President Ibrahim Boubacar. Meanwhile, Sisi's followers have claimed this was a political abduction, as none of the terrorist groups in the region have claimed responsibility. Malian opposition leader Mahmoud Dicko has called for demonstrations on July 10th to push for government reform, including the renewal of Mali's highest court and the formation of a government of national unity.
This day is special for us, for the simple reason that we have been without Soumaïla Cissé for 100 days. 100 days deprived of the life of our mother, of the political balance in Mali that Soumaïla Cissé has represented for more than 2 decades. Of course, I'm still hopeful when the President of the Republic says that today Soumaïla was spotted. Well, when the President says that Somalia has been spotted, I'm pretty sure that Somalia...
Explosions were seen in Sana'a, Yemen's capital and largest city on Thursday after the Saudi-led military coalition confirmed it's launched a major operation against the Houthi movement.
What happened last night was bombing and hitting this store, Oman oil store, and this is what happened in Swar, hit a household amplias factory. This process, launched by the coalition, this is their goal that you see, bombardment of warehouses, factories, and everything vital related to the citizens from facilities, infrastructure, factories, and everything related to the livelihood of these people. Last night, 2 airstrikes hit us, bombing the residential neighborhood and this place, exposing most of the houses to destruction. We have children in hospitals, and we have pregnant women having miscarriages. It is a catastrophe and a major crime. They neither consider the place and its sanctity, nor the sanctity of the inhabitants.
Health authorities in Cameroon have received a donation of 183 medical oxygen concentrators to support the country's fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The donation was delivered by WHO representative for Cameroon and Rwanda, Fanel Habimani. Cameroonian health authorities have reported over 12,500 coronavirus cases and a death toll of 313. Meanwhile, over 10,100 patients have recovered from the virus. Schools, universities and training centres have been allowed to reopen following the lifting of a nationwide lockdown, which was in place since March. The director of the World Health Organization for Africa appealed to the solidarity of the international community to facilitate the distribution of medicines to treat COVID-19. The appeal comes amidst alleged international reports linking the United States to the mass purchase of medicines considered scientifically effective in the treatment of COVID-19. Machi Disumoeti called to rescue the principles of equity in the market in order to guarantee the free and fair access of the global population to medical treatments and to avoid a monopoly over drugs intended to contain the coronavirus. Authorities in Botswana have warned of the mysterious deaths of hundreds of elephants in Okvango Delta Department. Botswana has the world's largest elephant population at about 130,000.
We have up to date 275 elephant carcasses that have been verified of the 356 that are reported in the northern part of Botswana within the Okavango region that are due to an unknown cause, which the government is currently investigating. It's at this stage it's difficult to really tell what could be the cause of the mortality. We have eliminated from the local labs the possibility of anthrax being the cause of this mortality, but there is still a lot of infectious diseases and potentially other toxins that are being still investigated by the laboratory samples that have been collected.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, but we finish with a music video for the song Let's Fight COVID-19 by the Masaka Kids Africana Initiative, composed of orphan children in Uganda who come from across Africa. Remember, you can find these and many other stories from the Global South on our website and social media. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching and enjoy the music.
Shake hands. Stay away from mammals, they can cause infection.